Yeah.
They cut you off.
I did. I cut you off guard for the last one.
Well, I need to get better.
The calm before the storm.
Oh, no. Sorry, must has
I was like, what time's the meeting get done? I said, consult your crystal ball, get back.
Yeah, thanks.
Call the January 9th, 2023 meeting to order. And Noah, if you would do the invocation for us.
Heavenly Father, we invite your presence here today. Lord God, I'm asking for wisdom. The spirit of counsel and might, power be upon us all tonight, God. Give us your wisdom to deal with the things, the agenda that's before us today, Father God. And Lord, just let your presence be in this space today. In Jesus' name. Amen.
If you would join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And roll call if you would, Tracy.
Carrie.
Here.
Nola.
Here.
Christie.
Here.
Jeffrey.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
Renee.
Yes, ma'am.
Tracy here.
Next, we have approval of the agenda.
I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda to remove the Board of Review appointments, just because I want more information on that.
Second that.
Okay, so we have one motion to approve the agenda, but removing items 20 and 21 for the board review members. Discussion on it? All right, I don't think it's too big of a deal as far as pertinent for the timing. The next bid meeting is in March. It would be nice to get the training in because training is up in February, so let's tight on that.
That is required.
And well, yeah, the training is required once per term now, so I think that'll make it tight, but we can bring it to February.
Okay.
So, all right,
Thank you.
yeah, for sure. Let's do a roll call vote.
There was no.
Yeah, I'm a second.
Oh, there was a second. Sorry.
Motion by Donna, support by Renee for the amended agenda.
Yes. Nola.
Yes.
Renee.
Yes, ma'am.
Lee.
Yes.
Carrie.
Yes.
Christie.
Yes.
Tracy, yes. Jeffrey.
No. Motion passes. Next, we have approval of past meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve past meeting minutes.
Support.
Motion by Carrie, support by Nola. Any discussion on the minutes? All right, here we go, roll call vote.
Carrie.
Yeah.
Nola.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Christie.
Yes.
Tracy, yes. Renee.
Yes, ma'am.
Jeffrey.
Yes. Motion passes. Next, we have the treasurer's report. So any thoughts, ideas, comments?
He rocks.
Sorry. $9,624.19.
You rock.
Perfect. All right, we will place that on file. Next, we have paying the bills.
Make a motion to pay the bills.
Motion by Carrie,
I'll second that.
support by Renee. Discussion on the bills?
I kind of want to know how come it costs $652.50 to put internet in the maintenance garage? That's a lot of money.
It costs a lot more than that. Yeah. Been around the fiber line out there.
Okay, and that's so that he can do his job, right? And
Right.
Okay.
Where are we looking?
First page.
first page down for Renee.
2/3 down. No, we're on bills.
It's not the second half. That's a relatively small portion. So to run fiber and get it spliced together is a lot. It was thousands of dollars.
It just better be worth it. I hope he uses it well.
Yeah, and sometimes the government agencies stay behind for a while.
Don't worry, I only gamble online.
There's cameras out in the garage, right?
If not, there should be.
There are not.
They could be.
It could be that. All right, so we have motion and support. Anything else? Roll call vote.
Terry,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
Nola,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Christie,
Yes.
Tracy, yes.
Jeffrey. Yes. Motion passes. Next, we have the fire department reports, if you would, chief.
The calls for service last month were just back up again. It was a storm. Still underneath the 10-minute benchmark that we try to strive for. Firefighter Fisher, that he approved last month, has gone through all the pre-employment stuff and has begun to do his in-house training, so he's moving along rapidly. Pleased to say for the 12th consecutive year, we kept our wreath red in front of the firehouse, which is just to keep everybody safe during the holiday season. We did very well with that, pretty excited. And the last thing is the staff has now begun to submit their request for consideration that I haven't put out for the FY 23-24 budget that I'll present after I review everything that they've submitted to me. Other than that, I have nothing else.
Thank you. Next, go into the annual fire report, and chief has the packets to hand out for the board. And we will say a few words about this as well.
As everyone's quite aware, this is something I strive on, that the organization strives on, that we do give everybody a copy of our annual report. This goes into every bit of detail that the organization has set forth. Additionally, on there, you'll see there's a topic on there. This topic on there is in regards to the upcoming 2023 millage that I'd like to ask for to present to better serve our community. Just a brief overview of the report. I know it's a lot. That's about 20 pages, but it's very important to me that the citizens see this. This will be posted online, both on social media and the department webpage. Just a brief, quick overview, 853 calls for service, which is slightly decreased. We all know that's partly because of the run-in with the pro QA stuff, but we're working through that. It still comes out to about 2.5 calls a day. We were well within the 6 minutes and 22 seconds, which is below 10 minutes. We're supposed to do 90% of the time, so I'm very pleased with the staff, and that's because of how we staff, but we need to change that a little bit. We did have 45 structure fire responses. 20 of those were considered to be working structure fires, where homes or property were heavily damaged, but only 5 of those happened to be in Dalton Township. So I'm very pleased with our fire prevention program. Obviously, the biggest bulk of our calls was medical, 720 of those, which is 68.93%. Was just strictly medical, and then we did use our Jaws of Life 15 times, which is the most in the county. 4 of those were to help other jurisdictions. From the public education standpoint, we did install over 100 free smoke detectors and CO detectors into homes at no cost to those individuals. And the staff put out about 1,300 hours of training additional that they do on with their regular shifts, plus what they have to do for everything else. So that's quite a bit of numbers. If you look at some of those organizations, that's far surpassing what they have to do. Each firefighter had 36 hours in 3 years, and we banged out 1,300 in a year. So they're giving 100%. So the next things you'll see a little piece of paper that Jeff and I had created. This is something we're going to give out to the community here in the beginning. This is just a start. This is just pure raw. This is just to show you the increase in service that Dalton has had since 2005. It doesn't seem like a lot, and that is a very wavy line. It can be a lot of factors, but as you see, it's still on the steadily increase. I'm not going to get into the skin and bones of every bit of it, but it's hard to do this kind of operation and give the citizens what they deserve with a paid on-call force. We're going to need to look at it, and I hate to come to the citizens, and any citizen that knows me hates that I have to come to this. I was hoping the assessor would have some information for me today. He did not, unfortunately, to give you the numbers, but if I can ballpark it in my head, it's probably going to be around $50 per 50,000 assessed value. Don't hold me to those numbers yet. I haven't gotten a good number. You can't take your family out to dinner once a week for 50,000 or 50,000 assessed. To provide someone to be there in less than 6 minutes. Your brain stops working after 4. I'm preaching to the choir. I know the last time we had a millage request, it passed, not to what we thought it was, and I don't know if that was a lack of education. That's why I'm going to start pushing this now. This won't be until the fall. I have to work with the clerk to figure out the election cycle, but it probably won't be until the late fall, which would then give us about 6 months to plan, and then we would look to hire potentially 3 full-time employees would be in the building 24 hours a day. There'd be 1 employee each day. Figure out how we're gonna keep them there. It's up to how we're gonna decide when it comes out to the funding, but I think we can physically do it. To put it into justification, we're the dead middle of the county, size-wise. The next closest department to us is Eggleston, which is about comparable to our size. Those individuals, they run about 150 more calls a year, and they have 2 full-time employees every day. And currently we have me. I'm not trying to say pity me party. That's not what it's about. But I'm asking these paid on-call folks to give up their evenings, their weekends, to provide a service to the citizens at really a rate that has been there since 2005. Now, I don't know if any of you have thought about how your stuff is, but to not see an increase in anything since 2005 is kind of hard to work with, especially the way things are going. So please understand that last piece is just something for you to have as a view. I would ask if you have any questions about the annual report or the millage, please, before you make any statements, come see me. There's nothing worse than misinformation or unattainable information. I will give you every bit of information. This goes for the citizens as well. I freely give out my cell phone 24 hours a day. Anybody can call me. I have 0 problem with that. But I have a problem with it when somebody says this isn't right, but they yet never asked me. My door is always open. I never close it. Please come see. I don't care if you come by my house. Stop and ask. To be uninformed is become uneducated, which does an untoward effect to everybody. And as a public servant for 35 years now, please understand, if anybody understands, it's me. And I want to give the best to our residents because they deserve that. So if there's nothing else, that's all I have. Citizens, again, anytime, please reach out. I'll be happy to help out. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Next, we have the planning commission reports, if you would, Lee.
We met December 20th. The meeting had 2 items from the meeting before, both the same thing, were just discussion items about sand mining in ponds. Steve, zoning administrator, is looking for more clear, just right here, for more clear statements for him to look at, so he doesn't have to be all wishy-washy with it. The other was tree removal and site plan review, and we just reviewed the possible verbiage that Steve brought to us for the amendment. Next on the agenda was election of the secretary for the remainder of 2022, which was just the last meeting there, because Nick Cunnan is leaving planning commission for the Board of Review.
Zoning board of appeals.
Yeah, Board of Appeals. And then the other one was just the election of 2023 officers, so the chair, vice chair, and secretary. Who are the new officers? So the chair we elect is voted back Dave Blick, vice chair Jesse McCormick, and secretary Todd Howland, I think.
That seems
I
great.
got to write that down.
Perfect, thank you. Next, we have the zoning board of appeals reports, if you would, Noah.
Okay. 12/19/22, we held zoning board of appeals. Craig Monet, Marvin Nash, and myself were present. We had to make clerical errors in spelling of last name corrections. Then minutes were passed as amended. ZBA 22-06 was from Brian Holman from 2505 Whitehall Road. He wanted, he was talking about a 6-foot fence that he put up, erected, and he did it without coming here first. And we're not supposed to have 6-foot fences. He was not present. We postponed it until we do another zoning board of appeals meeting. One neighbor was present to make sure it would not affect his property, Robert Tribble. And then the second meeting was ZBA 22-07, Fried and Virek LLC for Paul and Lori Gilbert, 4072 Russell Road. They requested to not build a storage wall in their garage as their plans had proposed. They wanted to change to a full access garage, adding a garage door for handicap accessibility. The wall would have made a tight fit for exiting a vehicle from a wheelchair. Variance was granted. There was no further discussion. The meeting was adjourned at 6:41.
Perfect, thank you. Next, we have the maintenance and grounds report. Kate wrote this up. I'll read it. It is December decided to be winter, at least for a week. Snow removal was a main task at hand for the month. I was on vacation in Florida and have to say thanks for helping out Jeff, Chief, and Travis from the fire department. As everyone knows, there was that blizzard and the three of them made it seem as if I wasn't even gone. Continued to inspect more road signs, and there are roughly just over 100 more intersections to inspect. Finishing all oil changes on equipment and trucks through January also. In the process of planning out a full LED replacement for my shop lights, fire department, and even the parking lot lights. The week of January the 2nd through January the 6th, I offered to have any township employee, elected or not, to job shadow maintenance for a half a day for more transparency on my duties. So
Question, I don't recall that being offered.
Me neither. Was there an email or something we missed?
I offered it at the staff meeting on this to this.
Staff
yeah,
meeting.
so it wasn't
Yeah, so
correct.
we went back
So it
there.
wasn't sent out to the trustees.
So we
But if you
were
guys want to talk,
Absolutely.
to.
I'm sure you can drop
We read
that.
that and we're like,
Right, that didn't happen. That didn't happen.
just thinking out that.
And to be fair, I did want to send it to you guys, but I didn't know if you guys would come.
Like, well, you know, we can't come unless we're invited, so
Absolutely, no, you're right.
please do next time.
Yeah, yeah, you just work with them for 4 hours, so you could do the work. So, and really Travis did well at covering for snow plowing, and then Chief filled in. I'm on there, but I did a very, very minor amount.
But I did just want to say thank you. That helped out a lot because I couldn't have planned it, so the blizzard was.
And next, we have our annual planning and zoning report. Steve, if you would.
There was a copy included in the reference packet that's since been amended and corrected
Few
in a
corrections.
few areas.
Small.
This is the
Thank you.
one that will be available online as well. The state of Michigan requires that the planning commission provide an annual report regarding its operations and planning activities once every year. This has been prepared to meet that statutory requirement. A brief overview of the year, there was a slight decline from the number of applications in all categories this year from last year, but that is not unexpected, as last year had a large number of applications due to the previous year's lack of applications from the shutdown and everything. Planning Commission met 12 regular meetings and had 6 work sessions. There were a total of 22 cases brought before the Planning Commission. They included 14 public hearings. There are notable ordinance amendments that the Planning Commission worked on. 2 were goals set for this year. Mobile food vendors and keeping of animals. Those were adopted. A third notable ordinance came up after we had approved a third ground-mounted solar array at a residence. The Planning Commission decided that they were just rubber stamping these anyway, so there wasn't any purpose in having them apply, spend $600 in public hearing. I used recently published guidelines by Michigan State University Extension. So now the only solar arrays that require a special land use are large solar farms. In regards to notable projects, most of the lots in the business park are now being sold. There are a couple that are still under ownership of the county, but I hear those are being worked towards private hands. Did approve the second business to go in this year, so I look forward to seeing more applications in the coming years. On page 3, there's a detailed list of all cases brought before the planning commissions. There were 8 special land uses, 8 site plan reviews. 3 of those site plan reviews were in connection with special land uses. There were 4 ordinance amendments and 2 zoning district amendments. The Zoning Board of Appeals, they met 5 times this past year for a total of 7 variance requests. 6 variance requests were for dimensional variances regarding setbacks or other physical properties and requirements. The 7th was for a use variance, which was for an alternate use of the property that wasn't permitted in the zoning ordinance. The ZBA approved 5 of those requests. They postponed 1 request to give the applicant an opportunity to appear, and they denied another request since it wouldn't meet the requirements set forth in the ordinance. There's a detailed list of those applications as well. On page 5 of the report, I compared this year with the previous 5 years. As you can see, there was a significant spike in 2021 after a significant decline in 2020. We had the 22 applications this year were actually 1 application more than the average of 2020 and 2021. So there is still consistency, even though there was a decline, not a jump. It seems to be leveling out. In regards to administration and enforcement, there were a total of 103 permits issued this year. 17 of those permits were for new houses. 21 were for additions and remodels on existing houses. The largest category, as always, was accessory buildings with 32 permits being issued. There are also 2 administrative site plan reviews approved, one for a minor change at Duck Creek and another for a minor change at Camp Luray. In regards to code enforcement, there were 64 new cases opened this year. Clay did 185 inspections and I conducted 6. There were 5 citations issued. 3 court orders have already been obtained, and we are still pending on 2 court cases. One of those court orders that have been issued, Clay closed out for compliance, and 2 are still in progress. In regards to goals from 2022, those goals have each been met. The Planning Commission has been working to improve the ordinance by eliminating vague and subjective language and to make it friendlier for residents and businesses. A prime example of that was the being proactive on solar arrays. That will continue to be a goal this year as well. We also developed regulations for food trucks and reworked the ordinance for keeping of animals. And then they continue to implement. Another goal is to continue to implement the zoning enforcement process so it's running smoothly. The ZBA met in January last year, provided feedback with that. The new resolution was adopted for that. I also had a goal of continuing with professional development to better serve the township. And last year I did receive zoning administrator's certificate and master citizen planner accreditation from the Michigan State Extension. And I look forward to continuing with professional development this year as well. That concludes the report for 2022.
Appreciate everything you do.
Perfect. Thank you much, Steve. Okay, next, we're gonna head into our first public comment on agenda items for 3 minutes. We are through 2 of 4 presentations for the night. So Matt from Fleece and Vanderbrink, I'll ask you to wait until we get just after this first public comment. And then right after that, we'll get to Matt and Wade for the water policy stuff, because I'm guessing the board will have questions on both those things. So if anyone has any public comment that they would like to do at this time, 3 minutes on any agenda item, please come up to the lectern. All right, seeing none.
Wait,
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna let someone else go first. Michelle Mixa, I live on Beatty. I am here because at 5:30, I found out that there is consideration of city water coming through and forcing residents to hook up. But I know there's conditions around that, but that's the bottom line from what I understand. I oppose that as strongly as a person possibly could. I feel like in a township where we're talking about moving towards solar energy independence, food independence, we're not gonna allow water independence for people. I think it's insane. I have the right to say what goes into my body, what I bathe in, what I cook in, what I wash in, my laundry, my cooking utensils, what I give my pets, what I water my garden with. And it's insane to me that we would even consider it. So I strongly oppose that, and I hope that the trustees hear me very clearly. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll move into our first decision item. And Matt, if you would, I assume you're back?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. If you would come up to the lectern
Yep.
and tell us a little bit about the Spark grants.
Good evening. My name is Matt Violet from Sleason Van and Brink. We are a civil engineering company out of Muskegon. And I've been having some conversations with Ms. Mills as relates to the Spark grant that's available for the DNR. This is ARPA funding money. That's about $65 million provided by the state. It's a non-handcuffed grant application, which means you don't need a match. You don't need to have a park and rec plans like you traditionally do for DNR grants. It is a highly competitive grant, but it also allows any investments that you make in the grant if you were awarded to be reimbursed through the grant. This is really an initiative by DNR to help townships and smaller communities really start visioning their parks and public spaces. As we all realized during COVID, people wanted to be outside. The reading levels of K through 12 students dropped because they didn't have access to a lot of things that they normally would in school, and they didn't have the access to, educational signage in parks and things like that in a lot of communities. So they weren't able to get out and explore nature in ways that help produce education. And so also along with that is American Disabilities Act. They're trying to get more people with disabilities to have equal use of public space and get those people out and enjoy the environment as well. So we've been talking about the eligibility and the Spark grant itself. It's a scoring-based grant. And it really does not influx on income levels, which is another nice thing that DNR traditionally has in their grants. There is an ALICE scoring card into it, but that's only 15 of the 100 points. So the economics of it doesn't really fall high into the categories of it. This is really a visioning opportunity for the board if you choose to go that route. There's two parts of this. In the visioning, there's the conceptual design of improving Bengal Field, and then there's the application of the grant. So there's two separate entities there. The visioning, depending on how you want to do it, has been proposed at about $8,500, and the grant application is about $6,500. Round that all together, about $15,000. If you were funded, that would be eligible for reimbursement. I can never guarantee a funding of a grant. Don't let me tell you that. And if I could do that, I'd go to the casino every night. And you wouldn't see me at all because I could guarantee things. $1.1 billion is the mega right now, so I might be playing that. So, but this is a wonderful opportunity that the state has provided. I know that it's not for every community, but it has availability for you to take a look at it. And I'm just here to answer any questions on it tonight. I know that you guys have mixed priorities in terms of what you need to do for township money, and every dollar is important. But parks don't improve themselves without visioning of trustees like yourselves.
So this basically is gambling.
It is. Well,
I'm just saying.
it is and it
Put money
isn't.
out there,
Yep.
maybe we get the grant, maybe we don't, and if we don't, we're stuck.
Well, so visioning can allow you to apply for future grants as well. Visioning can allow you to do a capital campaign within your own community for finding funding in the future. Without a vision for what you want that piece of property to look like or improvements it have, it's going to stay the way it is. So whenever you do a vision statement, there is a gamble on it on whether or not you can find funds. Absolutely. However, shy of having earmarked money within your budget, anything that you apply for in terms of improvements for a park space or a public space like that is a risk, absolutely.
We definitely saw a huge reason to improve our parks through 2020. I think I'm glad you hit on that. I know with ARPA, we've really been wanting to put money into our parks because of that importance. So if we're gonna be putting the money into it with ARPA already anyway,
Well, but there's still a large gap, right? So where I'm at on this is if you take $15,000 and you put it into some park, it doesn't necessarily go very far,
right?
right? Bunch to, not very far.
How much do we put into Catalpa?
I did that in a very nicely budgeted way. And it was somewhere around that number because I kept it pretty low. So-
A lot less than 155,000 that we heard a couple of years ago.
Correct, but those are much bigger projects. And so if you go after something like this, you can do that bigger project, which Beagle could certainly use. But I'm on the side of, just like I said last month, I think it's a decent chunk to put out there for the maybe. And so the parks need attention and they need to be looked after, but I would take a little more of a conservative, steady approach at it that we can keep a little bit in-house in small ways. So, I mean, that's where I'm at it.
So we're looking at the master plan this year anyway, right?
The master plan in zoning will be this year. The Parks and Recreation, we could do this year as well, or we could do it next year, but the Parks and Recreation is through 2023. So it's coming up as
I
well.
thought they were in the same.
They're very close in
The
time.
same.
When we talk about the Park and Rec plan too, please note that if you're not gonna apply for a DNR grant, you can let that lapse here. It will not have any benefit to you to create that Park and Rec plan unless you're gonna apply for a passport, a waterway, or a land conservation grant.
So I guess part of my thought is if we were looking at, like Renee says, the need for upgrading our parks and spending some money on there, maybe a master plan is a direction to go and have that, and then be able to take that to the community and say, here's what our vision is, do some fundraising or some, find some means to, help with that vision. Beagle Park gets used quite a bit.
It does.
A lot of, baseball, soccer. I haven't
Like
been there.
football.
Yeah, I haven't been there recently to, see how the playground area is, but
I think it's pretty nice. We've been out there a couple times.
When was the last time that there was a master plan drawn up for the
It's not
parks?
been too long.
A few years ago.
Yeah,
It
because
was
I
4
thought,
years ago.
I saw
That's
one,
before we got in office.
but I think, is anything done with that master plan?
So there's two documents. There's the Parks and Rec plan, which is a broad brush. These are the parks we have. This is the inventory. This is the general direction.
Which is what you're talking about.
Which is what you're talking about. Then there's a park master plan, which is looking at a
Which is what he's
specific
talking
property
about, and it's on
and
the
developing a
specific
concept.
Right.
And developing a specific
Which we don't
concept
have
for that product.
They have been drawn up in
That's
the
gonna cost that kind of
non-
money.
non-recent past for things. There was even one drawn up with a band shell and everything at one time at Beagle. It's pretty old. It's in the vault, but I did see it in there.
Does Beagle Park have the potential too for income? I know, I remembered something about that they were talking about if we filled or fixed up that building.
If
so
they
that we
fix
had
the building up,
flushing
you bet.
things.
Yeah.
I think that would be minor. So
I'm just worried, I guess what I'm saying is to be able to put that money forward and invest it, not gambling, or investing it in our township. And then potentially too, that might be a way for an income later to be able to offset those costs too. So that's what I guess what I'm saying. I'm just wondering, 'cause I know we've discussed that before.
did you have something on that, Andrew?
I was just gonna say that I'm the one that takes all the reservations and the contracts for Beagle Field. And after one practice on the soccer field, everyone in the prior years, got wind of how bad the soccer field was and nobody signed contracts last year for the soccer field.
We had one lacrosse team that used it just a few days a week for practice, but no soccer games were ever played out there. Very minimally used just because of the poor conditions of the field. Now the baseball's on the other hand, it books up. I'm probably thinking in the next week it'll be booked solid from April 1st through September 1st. And they're there, they practice there every night, 4:30 till dark. And then they have games Wednesday nights, Thursday nights, Saturday, and all day Saturday and all day Sunday from usually the end of May all the way to September.
Maybe this is too specific, but what exactly needs to be done in that field? Is it the water not being watered?
No, it's molds, it's really ruddy, so even, and Nate can contest when they're out trying to mow it, it's just rough. And, the coaches were, leaning on the side of safety, they didn't want their kids running around stuck in an ankle, breaking an ankle, that type of flat base.
And the moles have been significantly poisoned, but difficult to keep out because of the woods that it borders, and obviously we can't take care of them there, so they come into that area.
So pardon my ignorance, I'm learning this on this, but do we charge people to use the baseball diamonds and stuff?
They reserve it,
What do you charge?
$200 per season,
Per team.
per team,
Per team.
per team, per season.
Per season.
So
What other things you charge for over there?
That's it.
Just baseball?
Baseball, soccer.
If soccer was going, it'd be the same thing?
Pardon?
If soccer was going, it'd be the same thing?
Yep, each team that wanted to practice or hold games there, they'd have to sign a contract, release waiver. It's $200 for the whole season.
So there's an investment.
Yeah, there is, yeah. See?
Right, so there's no real
Thank you.
meaningful money as far as that goes. I mean, it still ends up basically being a public service.
Right, but it's bringing in something that helps offset some of it.
How many teams usually sign up?
But significantly minor.
Well, for baseball, how many teams do you have signed up?
2.
2?
Yep.
Okay. When the soccer field was doing well, how many would you
I
get?
look back at the older records, I've only been here a year and a half, well, just over a year actually. There were at least 4
Okay.
and a lacrosse team.
Mhm.
And then this year, the one soccer team that did put the deposit down, she called me after a week and said, it's too rough. Like, we're not gonna hold any games. If anybody else wants those dates, they're more than welcome to it.
Okay.
We can't.
So arguably, the soccer field used to make more money than baseball.
That makes sense.
Yeah, there's 2,
I mean, we can throw money at it.
there's 2 baseball teams that, like, they know each other very well. They run their leagues together and they get together and they say, okay, we're gonna have practices on this day and this day and this day. From this time, you can have it this time and this time, and then their tournaments are all together. So
Okay.
it's one big, it's huge. If you ever go out there during the summer, you wanna see some little kids play baseball, that's all you're gonna see.
Nice.
What are people thinking? Any more questions for Matt? Thoughts on these comments?
So this is a $15,000 investment. Regardless, to have them make this plan and bring everything up to speed.
It would be to make the plan and to do
Just
the
the plan.
application.
$15,000 just a plan.
Nope, the plan and the grant are
Plan and grant, right.
The plan is 85, the grant 65. Yes, sir, for 15.
So I'll make a motion to approve the Spark Grant project with Lisa Vanderbrink.
Motion, do we have a support?
I'll support.
Support by Karen. Any discussion among the board?
We've spent 15,000 on worse things.
It's an investment. I mean, ARPA, that's what it was supposed to be for, is our community. And 2020 proved the fact that our community needs help when it comes to, we only have a couple of parks. If we're not gonna maintain that, how do we expect people to wanna live in Dalton Township? Sorry, not sorry, but we need to, that is important. It's a community effort. It's not Republican, it's not Democrat, it's not independent. It's across the board community, and that's where people gather, and that's where kids need to be outside and playing instead of behind their phones. So I'm, sorry, just put it out there. So I'm definitely behind.
Can I say one more thing? There is a book share out at the park too. last year, I can't remember exactly what time, the gentleman that started it actually built it and put it out there, has become disabled. And he had went by and noticed that it had been broken. Out of my own pocket, I had the black plexiglass replaced on that. I haven't been able to get out there to see if books need to be replenished, but just if anybody has any books, they can take out there and put it out there. Yes.
Library lady.
Right at the,
Get the link from the library lady in the back, just so. Just tuck in.
All right, so we have a motion by Tracy, support by Carrie. Any other discussion? Roll call vote.
Tracy, yes. Carrie?
Yes.
Nola?
Yes.
Christie?
Yes.
Lee?
No.
Renee?
Yes, ma'am.
Jeffrey?
No. Motion passes.
All right, I will get with Christie here in the next couple of days. We'll get your kickoff meeting started.
Right, yeah, that's decently quick turnaround.
Yeah, so the next grant application won't be due until June, so we've got time to work on it.
Perfect. I really appreciate you coming out, Matt.
Absolutely. I thank you guys for the time. And,
Thank you for your.
Thank you.
All right, next we have three things that are together. They're all about water, water rates, water corrections and some of the ordinance and then the mandatory water connection as well. So we have Matt Farah and Wade Vandenbach, who both come from the County Water Policy Board and the county itself. And Farah, really appreciate you coming out. If you would like to speak to this.
It's good to be here. I'd like to, may I address her, because what we're talking about, even if that rumor was true, it would help so you wouldn't have to connect. I'm not aware of any water mains on Beatty Road.
Yes.
Well, yeah, okay, so
Right.
in the room today, we have Commissioner Sear here, we have Jeff here, and they're on a water policy board that approves any and all water main extensions. Nothing can force a water main to go in unless their board says it can. So,
But if it goes in, I'm forced to hook up.
today, yes, depends on how we vote on number 18, that answer could be no.
Okay.
Okay?
Because the board voted against the amended, we've always had mandatory connection. The motion that was brought to the board 2 months ago relaxed that mandatory connection, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it relaxed that to allow you to keep your well as long as it was in good working condition.
For your yard.
No,
That's how it's worded.
There's a bunch of details that we're going to go into.
right.
And the other thing too, for the good of the order, you know, Wade Vandenbosch is an engineer, and we have other engineers on staff. With the density, he was just showing me the area you're in. There's not enough homes there to make a water main worth it. I mean, the water get old and stale. It's just not something we would do. I don't know where those rumors start. And, you know, we can't just force a water main. I mean, we blocked more pipe expansion projects than we've approved.
Well, there's the one being
We're
debated
blocking one
now,
now.
up 120, that a child daycare detected PFAS. The child daycare applied to the state for the grant, but the Water Policy Board has said that it's not going to go in unless the state were to fully cover it with a grant, which we'll see if that happens.
Yeah, we're getting closer on that for the paying the whole thing. But another key component of this is the current ordinance is if we build this pipe with a grant and you hook up to it, you gotta pay the full-on $7,500 connection charge. And the Water Policy Board, I believe on number 17, there's language added there. So if something is paid by a grant, you don't have to pay the system back the full on connection charge. So anyway, I hope that eases your mind.
Not really more, knowing more will, but I appreciate it.
Now, I don't know what else to say other than there's no plans of putting a water main up there. I mean, I know rumors spread terribly, you know, in the county, but I don't see it. I just don't see it with the density that's up there. You get these things called plug flow, slug flow. That's just not healthy. I don't see it. So on number 16, it's just a resolution to increase the water rates. The other three communities have done the same thing. We have essentially one water system with Dalton Township, Fruitland Township, Muskegon Township, and Laketon Township that's overseen by a water policy board. Your supervisors on it, our Commissioner Kim Sear is on that. And they have voted to increase the rates. So what does that mean for the average resident that's on your system? It's about $2.40 per month increase that they will see on their bills. The second one, number 17, is very simple. In that appendix B, if you look at Jeff's red line out, we've been billing monthly for at least a decade. But the appendix B says we're gonna go quarterly.
That's why I call it a correction.
We're just correcting that. And then you go down on another sentence that he puts in, one of the things that the Water Policy Board is struggling with is if this water main is built to the hop and stops at the hop, and someone says, well, I want to hook into this at the state expense, well, then you got to try and pay the, I think, $7,500 connection charge. That's totally not fair because you're paying into the township or the water system money that they didn't expend, it's state grants. So it includes there, you get the indirect connection fee if it's paid for by a grant. So that saves our residents, especially along that route, quite a lot of money if they so choose to connect to the pipe. And then in 18, there's a lot of word changes. You know, when you write a contract and you read the thing 10 years later, like, what does this mean? I've seen that happen a week after you finish the contract. What we wanted to be made clear is that if the Water Policy Board approves building that water line past the hop, that someone that's within 200 feet of that water main, or within 200 feet of the right of way, doesn't have to connect. We want to secure that right, that they don't have to connect. We had a situation, and on the flip side, we had a situation in Dalton Township, no, it wasn't Dalton, Muskegon Township, where somebody wanted to build a house 700 feet off the road. But according to the ordinance that's been passed by all 4 communities, you build new, you connect no matter what. And so they would have to run a line however many 100 feet, 700 feet. So that's expensive, that costs them a lot of money. By the time the water gets there, it's old water, which we don't want that. It's just a waste of our people's money. I mean, I think that's what you two said anyway. So this says, you build a new house, and if you're within 200 feet, you gotta pay to connect. If you're 205 foot back, you don't have to pay. So it has some common sense and reasonableness, and it kind of follows the sewer ordinance as well. I believe that's all a 200-foot trigger.
Yes.
So the Water Policy Board is very desirous to make this fair and reasonable to everybody, all 3 of these items. Yes,
So,
ma'am.
yeah, my question, if they're, that 200 feet, they gotta pay, but if they're 205, they don't have to pay?
That's correct. And we struggle with what number to pick for several reasons.
They don't have to connect.
Right.
Okay, but if they're 200 feet, they have to connect.
With
What
it-
is the average home away from?
Yeah, I just saw it's, they're all pretty close.
They-
They're all within 200 feet, 200 feet.
But that's on a new build. Existing homes, if they're within 200 feet,
Existing
won't have.
homes, if they have a well and it's perfectly well, good water, and this pipeline goes in, are the residents forced
Not
to have that city water?
as of today, yes.
If we approve this,
If you approve this, the answer is no.
I'm gonna help me really understand this
But that's
because
not what it
we
I
already,
hate
That's
city
not what
water.
it says here.
Right, there's different
That's not what
parameters.
it states.
Well,
we
let's-
already have, we already have it in place that they
Why are
have
we
to
voting
connect.
on it then?
Okay, so if we go to,
We don't have to vote on anything, technically. We wouldn't have to do anything in the entire 4 years, right? But nothing would therefore change. And that's what the votes are. But I think basically I set them up so it's gonna get more contentious as it moves forward, right? So the water rates, I think, are decently straightforward. So
Understandable.
let's tackle that one first, and then water corrections, I also think is decently easy. And then the water connections will be the most debatable, right? So that's why I put them in that order. And so resolution 2023-01 for water rates. Is there anything about that?
I make a move to approve. Resolution 2023-01.
All right, so Carrie makes a motion for approving the water rate, support by Nola. Any other discussion among the board?
I have a quick,
Yes.
do we have to state the exact amounts? Or can we match it up to whatever the policy board
That's a good question.
Because otherwise we're coming back every time it needs to update.
Correct.
But we always want to be with what the policy board is saying.
And as far as I know, the Water Policy Board hasn't discussed going in that specific direction. This is written up by Curcio, the Water Policy Board lawyer. And as of now, the Water Policy Board has passed it, as in these are the new numbers. So we have this document, which we saw in 2021, when we updated the water numbers as well, that is planned out. But as far as I can tell, the plan is to pass these individually each time the rates need a change instead of adopting the entire plan for a long range. So this ends up copying the Water Policy Board, but I haven't discussed the idea of moving forward and adopting that our rates will just be whatever the Water Policy Board approves. That hasn't been discussed as long as I've been on.
I'm just curious because we're not ever, unless the rates are gonna drop and we still wanna charge higher, we're not gonna deviate from.
It was.
Doubt that they're gonna drop it.
Well, that's the only way.
But it would be odd for the township to move away from that, because, so in the contract, the amount of money that the individual municipalities have to cover has to be covered. And so you're right, if we didn't approve an increase, then basically the Water Policy Board would have to have math done to show the shortfall that Dalton is contributing, and then that money would have to come out of our general fund. So it'd be extremely unusual to not approve it. So
Is there a way to put a parameter?
Yeah.
that might be able to be looked at in the future if we want to put it on the schedule for the Water Policy Board.
Parameter of cost, low end, high end, so that it falls within that before we have to adjust it again.
I see what you're saying.
Maybe. So so you could approve almost like 2 adjustments in one or something like that.
Just to, so it's not continuing to come back all the time for every tiny little $5,000 credit card, like that.
Well, that we need it for the
I know
banks,
it's two different
but
things,
yes,
but I'm just saying.
yes. Yeah, I get what you're
that
doing.
it's a parameter.
Otherwise, you're seeing stuff that, why are we seeing it again if we already approve of it? Yeah, makes sense. All right, so we have a motion by Carrie, support by Nola. Any other discussion just on the water rate portion? Roll call vote.
Carrie,
Yes.
Nola,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Tracy, yes, Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
Christie.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, we have what I call the water corrections. And that there were a few different things in here, which is why I included the red line version. These are relatively small, that way they stick out. From quarterly to monthly, which is actually just the practice as it is now. The one part in section B, that other funds from the state, such as state grants, could be included, not just private funds. That's the one I suggested. And then obviously if it's moving to monthly, instead of quarterly, the large users may be billed monthly is just a repeat. And so relatively small adjustments. And that's why I separated these out.
Make a motion to approve ordinance 2022
Wait, he's still gonna get discussion. No, you can do it.
You can do it.
as corrections to the water rates and charges policy.
All right, we have a motion by Nola. Do a discussion, Lee?
It might be for the next thing, I was just. If there's water ran past, what about isn't there still an assessment for the water to go across your property? I mean, it seemed like I had to pay an assessment. I didn't have to, but if I was gonna buy this one house, the water assessment wasn't paid. Is that just for it to be ran in front? Or is that the connection fee? I can't remember what that was. It's been a while since I was trying to buy that house, but.
So the connection charge includes,
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go for it.
Make sure. So the connection charge includes, the cost of the pipe, includes the water line to the property. Your little service, as we call it.
Yep.
That's what that covers. Now you would have to cover to bring it into your home and the monthly thing. Yeah, 'cause-
Yeah, cause I remember it was like $8,000 or something like that.
It's like they should be paying us
Right.
for connect to our property.
And that
I'm
for
just-
the connection.
Yeah, I was just wondering, because like you were talking about, you don't have to connect if you're already there, but you still have to pay any money. I mean,
If you're
for running it, I mean. it seemed like it's-
205 feet off the road,
I think it's called the ready to serve charge is what
it's
you're
gonna
paying.
go in front of you anyway.
The water goes past your house, the water plant supplying the water has to maintain capacity to supply your home in the event that your well dries up and you need water.
Yeah.
So they call it usually a ready to serve charge, if I remember right.
So it's ready to tap into it.
Even if you're not buying the water, yes, you're still gonna be paying for the water going past your house.
Divide it up so that it's not so much on.
If you're not connected, you don't pay anything.
Right. Yeah.
Okay?
And so that section, and we're getting more into the next one. the
Okay,
natural
yeah, that's,
connection
I
debate.
didn't know if it was this one or that.
So I made the motion and Carrie seconded.
Carrie's gonna second.
Oh, did you second that, Carrie? All right, perfect. Motion by Noah, support by Carrie. Any other discussion among the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Noah,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Tracy, yes, Lee,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
Christie.
Yeah.
Jeffrey.
Yes. Motion passes. Now, we're on to the big one. We've been talking about this for months. I think most people basically know the situation. But this is ordinance 2023-03 for the water connections itself. And this is a little bit different. And I had the lawyer talk, our lawyer Scales talk directly with Kershio from the Water Policy Board about what's in the contract and what has to be met here. And it does talk in the contract about conformity among the municipalities, right? That the county can review and recommend. But if you differ on the rates, that money has to be generated from somewhere, has to come from somewhere. You're still on the hook for that. But as far as I understand now, there can be variances in the ordinance. Now, that hasn't been done in the past, and there's been dispute over that in the past. And so as that, if that were to develop, then it becomes a debatable thing and probably becomes something interesting and unique among the Water Policy Board itself. But this, as we've written it up here, right? And so Kim was in on all of the discussions / debates, right? And how it started was, like Matt had mentioned, in Muskegon Charter, right? So you have someone 700 feet off the road, should they be forced to connect? And the way it started was that, yes, the Water Policy Board was going to go in that direction. And so Kim and I are on the same page with disagreeing with that, right? So we walked it back, basically, over a number of months. And we ended up where this is now. And to a decent extent, it moves from a more vague water policy ordinance into a more detailed water policy ordinance. So it removes some vagueness from it and it loosens it a little bit, right? Because there's a few small exemptions that were not there in the last one. And so that's how this ended up the way that it is, right? Which we split on last time, and the split vote is a no vote, right? I brought that to the Water Policy Board and I thought, all right, can we kind of just leave that the way it is? I know it's not ideal, but the board wanted to see it come back. And so, which is reasonable to have them present and everything. So that's where we are on the connections.
Well, the situation I'm looking at here, on line 2, it says, when existing well serving the building runs dry, is contaminated, or otherwise fails, owner of the property may not, for a purpose of avoiding mandatory connection, improve, expand, rehabilitate, redrill, deepen, or otherwise extend the useful life of a failed well. If I can't, it's my property. If I just have to redrill it, I have good water.
Yeah.
What's the problem? I understand that. We straighten that line out?
Yep.
Break that line out?
That's one.
That's one. The next part, in paragraph C, after connection is made to the system of non-contaminated well.
Yep.
On the subject parcel may remain in use for irrigation and other similar uses occurring outside the building on the parcel for purposes of clarity. Such wells may be used to clean animals, personal property, or the exterior of the premises that shall in no event be used for human consumption or bathing. Why? If the water is good, if I can drink it, why can't I use it? That is the lines I'd want out. When you take those lines out, I'm good with this.
Right.
And I'm gonna.
I mean, I should be able to use my water.
I wanna add into that, like, didn't that Beagle Field, did we not just re-drill a well down there? Did we just not redo that?
Yep.
Okay, we can do it for the township. But now personal private owned property, this is still America, land of the free. And when you've got somebody putting fluoride, which is a neurotoxin, you are dosing people with unknowable amount of toxins. We have more cases of dementia and Alzheimer's now than ever before. And I'm totally against it. Fluoride is a neurotoxin.
Yes, it is.
It softens bones, it does not strengthen bones. When it's brought to a municipality, it comes with crossbones and skulls on it. They wear hazmat suits in dealing with this product. It's not, I'm just totally against it. And it's, again, my water is perfectly good. There's no way that I just would never want chlorine or fluoride, never, never.
I just want to say that this does not affect where I live. Because where I live, this is not probably ever going to happen in my lifetime, where the water main's going to go in front of my yard. However, I don't sit up here for me. I sit up here, I was voted, I was elected for we the people. And I don't want to say yes to something that I don't want if it does affect me. So
Right.
I'm still trying to understand how this is more good for freedom when I'm reading black and white, being told that it doesn't affect me. So I'm still trying to understand why we want to pass this when the wording on it is contrary to everything inside of me. I don't want to be forced as a homeowner when I have a perfectly good, it says right here, non-contaminated well to hook in. I don't understand. That's simple. I'm not understanding why we want this.
The something similar has already been passed and is in place. So this relaxes what is already in place.
So why don't we change that, is what I'm saying. Take
Right,
that out.
she was saying
Take
she doesn't
those
understand
lines
why
out.
we
Well, that's
want
the
to,
thing.
but
We
that
take out those
it
lines, that's
relaxed.
subjective language.
Yep.
It won't be an issue.
Right, so
But it's the
we're,
language that we have right here, right now.
Right.
This is where it's being capricious, it's actually attacking people's rights.
so
If
we're,
I don't want city water,
Why should
I don't want city water.
Why should I be forced to drink?
Exactly, and now if let's say I sell my property, I move away, okay, I go someplace else. This person buys my property, pipeline goes in, they go sell the property, the next person has to now hook up. Regardless of that well's good,
Mhm.
they have to hook up because they sold the property.
correct, yeah.
That's, again, if people want to move into an area which, if they want well water, it says city water, you just took that choice away from them because of the language in this ordinance.
Correct.
That's what I want to change.
Right.
That's our authority.
Right.
We are legislative. We can make these changes. Saying we can't do that is wrong.
Yeah.
This is wrong. I don't care what anybody says. Like she said, we were voted in here to take this kind of stuff out. And this is the stuff we need to take out. So yeah, as it's written right now, I'm not going to vote this through unless we change that language.
Right. So the actual issue that we're getting into is if we can vary from the water policy board. So, yeah, if you would, Matt.
The language you're concerned about is with the well, correct?
Right.
Okay. So as it stands now, the same situation holds true. Essentially what this does, if you look at the original language, is it secures that 200-foot mandatory connection if you build a new house. This is the main thing this does. Like I said, right now, if you build a house 300 foot back, under the current ordinance that you passed, not this board, but a Dalton Township board passed, then we as a county staff have to enforce your ordinance. So
You change that ordinance, that's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have stuff
Yes,
you want
okay.
Jeff to bring back to water policy board, we're all ears. We're just staffers.
Yeah, because what's frustrating is like, I'm in an old world home, and I want to build a new home on my property at some point in my life. And the thought that if I choose to upgrade my life, I'm gonna be forced to downgrade it if city water went through, that's a frightening thought. That's a frightening thought. That's detrimental to my health. You know, I'm a caregiver, I take care of my daughter, you know, and it's like, I have to look out for her. And I look out for my aunt who suffers with some dementia things happening. You know, studies are showing that children that are getting too much fluoride, they're already having cognitive issues. And it's like, what are we doing to people
We don't
because we
trust
don't
city
know?
water.
Pardon?
We do not trust city water.
No,
And that's fine. I'm not here to argue whether it's safe.
yeah, but we're trustees, and that means we're held to a higher accountability for the people of our community and what's safe for them and what's not safe for them. Some people just don't know the truth behind what's going on with the fluoride and chlorine. They don't have a clue. And it's like, we're destroyed because we don't know. So I wanna know. I'd rather know so that I can avert disaster in the future.
Is there things I can answer for you, research I can get for you? Or?
I have a question. Let's say I live next door to the hop, the daycare in question right now. Water main goes through. My house is fine. It's already built. I have a well and it's fine. Do I have to connect to city water?
No.
Because it's already there.
Do you have to if you need a new well?
Yes.
Yes.
As it,
If
Your
my well-
water's
if-
good,
and
but
if my
you need a
well
new well.
fails,
As it stands now,
That's what I have a problem with.
That's why we want those.
that's what's in there now. And
So
we,
can that be changed and you can vote
so
on that?
one thing
that's
that,
what I.
That's what we're
this,
trying to
that
do.
ends up being the big point of contention, right? So with the Water Policy Board, right, and I was fully under the impression that it had to be the same because there's a history of lawsuits with the board, right? So I've been saying for
we're
3
not
years.
doing another one.
I've been saying for, 2 years, so, right? I've been on the board for 2 years. And I've been saying that it's not a good structure, right? Because the Water Policy Board has to pass something, then the individual municipalities have to pass the same thing. What if there's a disagreement? The only way to resolve it is a lawsuit. And so I've been encouraging that to get done in some different way, right, for the last 2 years. Not a great way to do it. But it would appear that the rates, the finances, the things that affect the finances, if they vary, then the Water Policy Board should win the lawsuit and the money should be taken from the township. But if there are ordinances that vary, that don't necessarily directly affect the money, it looks like a case can be made that the ordinance can vary between the municipalities. It hasn't been done. And I don't know if it would result in a lawsuit, and I don't know who would win it. But it looks like a potentiality.
Wouldn't it affect the the system if so let's no state grants, the HOP needs to have water run. Nobody has to connect to it. Who's paying for all that pipe?
Well, right, so
Because
if
we
you
have
don't have
contamination issues.
like where people have to connect there and you have the extension of the water and you can't cover the cost, well, then the township should lose some version of a lawsuit that says the township has to cover X amount for the number of connections that should have occurred but now haven't. Right, so when it affects the finances, I don't see how in the contract it's written, how the township could win that lawsuit. It seems extremely unlikely.
The way the contract's written between the communities is that if there's a case like that, say the HOP needs water, just as an example, forget they have the state grants. And they're willing to pay $1 million of this $4 million thing. Then the Water Policy Board can say, do we kick in the rest? And they can vote on that. It's totally up to them.
Right.
But they don't, they're certainly not obligated to do that.
And if that was the situation currently, I'm pretty confident the policy board would just shoot it down.
Right, the Water Policy Board already has. They said you can move forward with this as long as it's 100% grant funded.
Right.
Which I totally agree with. And I can, a little background on this last paragraph, that what I'm thinking this ordinance doesn't go far enough, is what I'm hearing, this last portion. One of the reasons why the Water Policy Board changed it a little bit to say a non-contaminated, because we don't want, let's pick on the HOP again. We don't want them continue to use that water pulling from a lower aquifer and bringing up high PFAS concentrations and dumping them on an upper aquifer that could go contaminate your neighbor. So if it's a contaminated well, I think they just didn't want it for use. We did the same thing on the North Shores Airport, still 100 people connected, but they were forced to plug those wells off because there was no contamination. And we don't want that contamination to migrate elsewhere.
When I believe in the ordinance as it is now, we've looked at a number of different adjustments over the last few months, so might have us confused, but I believe we added that so that people could keep the well in general. Because as the ordinance that exists now, so the current Dalton Township ordinance says that if you end up having water run by and you connect to it, you have to get rid of the well entirely.
And that's the problem.
Right.
That's one of the problems right there.
Yeah.
If we could take those out.
That's the current one, you're saying.
Well,
Right, that's, we can change that, is what I'm saying.
That's
We
no,
can
that's
change
the current one in effect
Right,
now.
right.
Exactly, not this.
That's
This is
why,
the one changing
They're
this.
saying a third option.
right,
The third
those
option is,
things,
I could actually make a motion right now. Make an amendment to this as it's written, taking those lines out. And we can vote on it right here, right now and change that.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna make that motion.
what specifically is going on?
I'm gonna make the motion to accept the ordinance 2023-03 with the amendments of removing of line 2 in paragraph B. Where it says, when the existing well serving the building runs dry, is contaminated or otherwise fails, the owner of property may not, for the purpose of avoiding mandatory connection, improve, expand, rehabilitate, redrill, deepen, or otherwise extend useful life of a field well. Remove that. So they can still fix it, if they can fix it.
Yep, B2.
If they can't fix it, then they can't.
Mhm.
And then also in the last part of paragraph C, such wells may be used to clean animals, personal property, or exterior premises, and shall in no event be used for human consumption or bathing. Remove that, they should be able to still use it. If the water's not contaminated.
You
Part of it
remain-
also talks about it only being used for irrigation though, and outside the building on the parcel.
Right,
So that whole thing should be eliminated right there.
yeah, remove that.
So remove B2 and C,
The first
is that
part,
what it does?
yeah, it says after a connection is made to the system. Remove that whole part.
So you're okay with newly constructed
Yeah.
buildings
But
and
you know what?
sales?
Again,
Of a
like if I
house,
go to
of course.
rebuild my home, I'm gonna be forced to plug in city water then.
Yeah.
So that's not fair.
If you rebuild
Like
them,
if I build a house on my property, say 5 years from now all of a sudden, the county comes and puts water down Lakewood Road. You know, then I would be forced to hook up unless I made sure my house was what,
that's true.
way back? And that, I'm like, no,
Mr.
I
Farmer,
didn't
quick
move
ask,
here.
when was the last time any pipe was laid in Dalton Township?
There's been before my time.
Irrelevant,
Oh, six.
Uh,
That is
was it
irrelevant.
06?
irrelevant. I don't care if it's
So I
40
can tell you,
Come on, please, sir. I'm speaking as a citizen now, sir.
Yeah.
Please, sir.
absolutely.
So you think before '06?
I don't know the exact, Wade, is the subdivision you did at the airport, is that in Dalton Township?
No, it's Muscatine.
It's Muscatine Township? Yeah, I'm not aware. I've only been, in the area for, so
No,
long.
I work well, sir. I'm asking as a citizen again, not taking off the fair chief hat, that we have not laid any pipe in at least 10 years.
So that's
And there
probably true. I can
And
remember,
there's no plans in the near future to lay any more water short of the industrial park, which is already there, which has turned it back on. There is no other water being planned except for the hop due to this PFAS contamination.
that is correct.
Thank you. That's all I had. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
So the last I'm aware of, we drilled under US 31 to increase reliability on M120 on this side of that, but I'm not aware.
The River Road
Yeah,
corridor.
we're not how do I say this? We're not the government looking to build water in rural townships. It doesn't make sense. That's not what we're looking to do. We've been dealing with the hot for how long, Jeff? 2 years now, at least?
Approaching it somewhere in there.
And we're the ones, when I say we, the county, our boards, we're the ones that have been putting the brakes on this for several reasons. You've already passed the ordinance earlier, so we can't force people to have a higher connection, even though it's paid for by someone else. But we're the one holding up. In fact, we're holding up right now. The state has agreed to pay for the whole price, but we're still not moving forward until we can say, you pay for engineering, you pay for everything. The day the bid's open, if the bids come in at 5 million, you're giving us 4, we can take a walk. Because we're not interested, My commissioners are not interested in sticking your residents or your water ratepayers with their proportionate share of $1 million bill. We told them it's net zero, and we're walking away, and I have a policy board's absolute backing on that. And they are the only body that can say, other than Wade, who signs the permits, that can say this is not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. They weren't gonna let us loop it back down into the river. Well, he's not gonna sign the permit if you don't loop it around. Period. Yes, ma'am.
Are there any other townships within Muskegon County that are also having this debate?
I don't think they're debating it. The other three,
Outside of this policy board, I'm not sure. So, but I think as far as I can tell, Muskegon Charter, Laketon, and Fruitland
passed it.
don't, yeah. Did they already all pass it?
I'm pretty sure they did.
Yes, we have. So why, if there is no plans to put water out here, why are we even going addressing this? I'm kind of curious.
Here's, one important thing to me, and I've said it before, is that right now, and I can't think of an area, if there's a vacant parcel of property and someone builds a house on an existing pipe, and someone builds a house 700 foot back, according to this document that was passed by this board and others, they have to pay to connect. And I think that's
This is
absurd.
more relaxed than what is currently in place.
This is definitely more relaxed, but it doesn't take it far enough for you, is what I'm hearing. Is that what you're hearing, Commissioner?
Did you have something, Christina?
If that's the same resolution that Layton and Dalton Township is, even though I share and I can agree with what your concerns are with that, I don't think you can change it. I think it's gotta be all agreed on, what everybody else has voted on.
Well, that is the big fulcrum of the issue. So we have a motion, right? So it is to pass the ordinance B2 and C. Correct?
Right?
And also line 3, paragraph B, for newly constructed well, unless there is an existing well.
It's non-contaminated.
Where?
Basically,
New
we
construction.
want as long as something's not contaminated.
New construction. If there's already a well on this property and you're going to build and the well is good, you shouldn't be forced into city water if it's there.
Okay, so you're saying B2, B3, and C.
Yep.
So if a house sells,
House sells, has a good well on it.
but isn't that number 1?
If the house sells, is one.
Oh, house sells.
All right, so is that what the motion is? So it's to pass it, but eliminate B2, B3, and C.
When is it okay to require a connection? I guess that's,
Requested.
Yeah, the person has a personal, our free will of choice.
so if there's,
Do I want to hook up to city water? Maybe somebody doesn't have a problem with city water. Maybe they don't consider the dangers of city water.
Right, but what's the motion?
Well, that was the motion right there. I'm not gonna worry about the other stuff right here.
All right, so the motion is to pass it, but eliminate B2, B3, and C.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to clarify because, adjustments
With
in
those
there.
amendments that we have.
All right, yep. So do we have a support?
Support.
Support by Noah. So motion by Carrie, support by Noah. Discussion among the board. Where I'm at on this is that affects the finances. What?
You're on the water board.
Yeah.
Conflict of interest.
We could appoint you to the water board. I would like that. Oh, we can look at that. Well, I'll put that on the next agenda. All right? So where I'm at on this is I think it affects the finances enough, almost guarantees a lawsuit, which we'll probably find out exactly how that comes out in a couple of years. I'm certain that I'll find the lawsuit interesting. So I don't mind that. But I don't think it's necessarily a good use of the township funds necessarily. And it's probably just a hassle. I think, as far as I can tell, there could be a variance between the townships in the ordinances if it doesn't affect the finances, at least very directly. And so I would like, at that point, I would like to look it over more. Because if you're, as for instance, so the newly constructed, I mean, if you get a condo complex that with dozens of units built in, and then that doesn't have to connect, well, then the Water Policy Board should come after us for all of those connection fees. So it's a big financial gap.
So your new construction just states new construction, it doesn't say condos, it doesn't say.
Multi-unit versus single unit.
I'm talking about a family home.
Note that.
Note that.
So,
Sure, what are you talking, a larger lawsuit versus a smaller lawsuit? You know, I mean,
so
that's,
no, like,
Just say a multi-unit, construction needs to hook up. But if it's a single owner home, family home, no.
I mean, that's,
So
yeah.
That's discrimination in the first place to be forced into city water.
Anyways, so my point is, that's where I'm at on it, right? So I wouldn't go forward that aggressive as of now, at least. But any other discussion among the board?
I think I don't think we can just wipe those items clean. I'm with you, Jeff, on the financial portion. I think the existing well, you know, I think if you are not in an area that has the contamination, maybe you can do some fixing, or, you know, I guess I don't know exactly what this means. Like our well, we had to put a new pump in. Is that considered a failed well?
Yeah.
Jeff, we're still in discussion, can I?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you would like,
The original,
better to hear it now.
the genesis of all these ordinances, it didn't just happen overnight. They're from the 70s when, you know, 202 money was out there, and, you know, one Public at 185. So the intent was, when you sold bonds for these water systems, yours have since been refunded, so I'm sure those covenants aren't there. You know, you say, here's the ordinance, bondholders, before you sell, that we're gonna go. The bondholders evaluate it, they evaluate your master plans. Okay, so and you account for how you're gonna pay for this. Somebody get 100 new connections a year, they're gonna pay this much money. This is how you get your bond rating, this is how you get, you know, bond purchasers to buy at a decent rate. Now, does this apply, is it in the bond covenants you shall have that? I don't know, I didn't go back to it. We've refunded those bonds a few years ago and refinanced them at a lower rate. So that's why it's like that. The intent is if you have the density and you build a public system, whether it's natural gas, whether it's water, whether it's sewer, electricity, you get off the generators. If it's sewer, you get off the septics. It's you know, all for one for all. But we're kind of I understand where you're coming from, I really do. I live in a very rural community as well, so I totally get that. But that's where all that stuff comes from. And if I may, I know it's out of order. Could we relax rules and make a 10-second comment on business partner work, Jeff, before we're done?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just so you know, north of Agard, closings will happen soon. We just had to do some more fancy footwork with the DNR on a railroad track that's abandoned that they never need again, but we're finishing that up. South of Agard, none of that's been sold. We've had it surveyed, you know, there's a treatment plant there. We have to keep that treatment plant on the county property forever. But the Board of Commissioners is going to consider going out for an RFQ for a commercial realtor to start moving those lots south of Agard. And we think there's some value there because those lots will have rail access. So hopefully, Jeff, we've been going like mad on that place. By the end of 2023, we can unload them and get them back on your tax roll and get some productive businesses going in there. That's all I can say.
Perfect, thanks, Matt.
Can I, Jesse, I'd like to know what your thoughts are, because I see you moving around a lot back there and talking. I'm like, okay, Mr. I would really like to know, because I'm getting on black fire.
Yeah, so I know where everybody's coming from too. I love property rights, right? But none of you up there write water system ordinances, so don't try to start to, because it's not gonna work. Like Matt said, they had a lot of originations where they came from. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. I understand you're looking at property rights, stuff like that. But they're trying to simplify, relax what they can, run with it. It's better than we have today, right? You can't reinvent the wheel on this. The whole well thing, right? If you hook up this and that and it says you can't use it for personal drinking or whatever it says, who's gonna enforce that? No one. It's a liability thing.
Lawlessness.
The state just wants off the liability of your well.
Then they need to leave me alone.
That's what he's saying, that.
Who's gonna come out and say, oh, you drank a gallon of water out of your well?
God sees everything.
No one. No one.
Come on. It's
It's verbiage in there for liability.
the laws of the land.
That's all it is.
That's what
I
I'm
made a
trying to-
motion.
Yes.
Order, I made a motion.
Yes.
Seconded.
Oh, but a trustee did ask someone from the public to make a comment.
And I appreciate that, because that's what I'm trying to get my head around this.
It's better than we have today.
That's what I'm trying to understand,
Okay?
how this is
Trying to
better.
reinvent the wheel on it is just gonna create hours and hours and hours of work and possible lawsuits and all this stuff. For what? There's no net gain to it, right? If the state or somebody's gonna shove water down the road, they're gonna do it. I don't care what the ordinance says. Right?
It
The health
almost
department
feels,
says you're not using your well anymore, you're not using your well anymore. I don't care what the ordinance says.
it feels like blackmail.
I will claim my constitutional
You'll
rights.
do this or else. That's the way when I'm reading this in black and white, that's what it says to me.
It's better than what we have today.
Yeah, and you work with water on the ground as well. What was, yeah, you-
Just quick question, comment. As of right now, if this project moves forward, the pipe is laid, everybody that borders that pipe must connect. Okay? No, that's not true.
No, it's not true.
As of right now, if they do not have.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
I was flipping all around earlier.
Yeah.
If they're existing and that pipe goes in,
yes,
unless they do a petition for a special assessment, it's a whole different.
yeah,
The answer is no.
okay,
We just build
conditions-
out.
There's conditions that you'd have to connect.
okay,
But if you don't do it in your home, you don't sell your house, you're not forced to connect.
okay. So as of right now, project moves forward, pipe's laid, and I live next door to the hop. I do not have to connect if I do not want to.
That's correct.
Okay,
But not right now.
okay.
May I share something?
Yeah.
I went through it in Dalton Township when the pipes did go through. I did hook up the sewer because I had to, because my house was 198 feet. Oh, I didn't want to fight it being the clerk. I wasn't gonna go through that. I thought, you know what, I could have pushed it, but I didn't. I hooked up the water, I did not, even though I'm on 8 acres and they put in 3 stubs on my property in case I choose to develop it in the future, if I want to sell it and homes want to go in, city water will be there available. Now, if something happens to my well, my water well, at that point, I'm supposed to hook up according to,
Yeah, that's what
then I'm supposed to hook up to city water. Or if I sell my home, whoever buys it will have to hook up to city, that's how it is. But you don't have to once you're there. Like
Okay.
I just have sewer.
What's even wrong with sewage is I know a lady that lives in Whitehall, downtown Whitehall, and her neighbors, they put diapers down their sewage and it blocks up her sewage. She has to pay to get it unblocked. She didn't do it. The neighbors did. It's like septic systems. They worked for a reason. They worked for a reason.
all right. So we've got the motion, we got the support.
I just want one clarification. I know you said something about the well thing. I mean, this is just if the well can't pick up water, right? This is just clarifying, if your pump goes bad, replace the pump.
Yeah.
Yes, it seems like some people are having a thing with that too. It's not your well's bad, it's your
Right.
pump's just.
Okay.
Yes. Well, it's correct. All right, good. Anything else for the board? No. So the motion by Carrie, supported by Noah, is to pass the ordinance as written, other than the amendments of eliminating B2, B3, and C.
Right.
All right, so roll call vote.
Carrie,
Yes.
Nola,
Yes.
Tracy, no. Christie,
No.
Lee,
No.
Renee.
Abstain.
Jeffrey.
All right, so that doesn't pass. Yeah,
Just one more thing, if I might ask, and I'm sorry to be out of order here. Could you come back to water policy we meet and we have another discussion on this?
yes, yeah, we can do that. I mean, we'll have to. On Wednesday, I told Tracy, I think I told Christy, I told several people that I'll be at an uncomfortable water policy board meeting on Wednesday
Regardless.
from.
Thank you all for
10 to
listening.
noon.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So that one's voted down. So
That's voted down. There could be another motion.
there can be another motion.
Okay.
Now, we just haven't had any other motions, but is there anything else on this?
Well, I guess questions. If not, make a motion for this. I know you've already been talking about it. You're gonna have to go back to the Water Commission Board and talk some more, right? That's pretty much what's going on right now, if we don't pass this. Right?
That will be, yeah, it'll be an interesting conversation.
To see if our township will possibly get into a lawsuit or anything like that, correct? If we don't pass anything.
Yeah, so that's essentially what I'll bring up, so this is for Matt Wade for the meeting coming up on Wednesday. And so if the township varies on this ordinance, right, having passed the corrections, having passed the rates, if we vary on this ordinance, and this will be determined a lot by what the supervisors say in the other townships, and then Sears is here tonight, but we have 2 county commissioners that haven't been on the board because we just had elections coming onto the board new. And so it'll be determined, by which direction they want to go on this. But I think a large change like this affects the finances enough that at least some of them, and I don't know to what extent, are going to say that you can't do that and possibly go in the direction of lawsuit. I know no one on the board wants the lawsuit, but there's no other good way to resolve it. And so, so the discussion that I would have with them is if we do vary, but I can make the case that it doesn't greatly affect the finances, which would be different than that. It's still, if you roll back somewhat from this, does that work? And I'm going to lean in the direction that it potentially could. There's people on the water policy board that are going to disagree, and that will be a discussion on Wednesday. We already worked pretty hard to roll it back to the version that I brought you, right? Which is essentially my case was take the tiny, it was a very small win, but nevertheless, take the small win, but.
Well, I guess I'm gonna make a motion to approve the ordinance 2023-03 for mandatory water connections.
Support.
Okay, so we have a motion by Lee to approve it as written.
Okay.
All right, and we have a support by Tracy. Discussion on this. This is quite complex. So where I'm at on this, right, is that if we pass it, you take the win, right, of getting this in the way that it is written, which is it eliminates some of the vagueness, as a few more small exemptions compared to the ordinance that we have now. We also retain the possibility of veering from the policy that the Water Policy Board has, as I have that discussion with them, because the discussion will still occur nevertheless, and to see where we are, so we can bring it back around. But I don't know how that'll go. And then obviously, if we don't pass it, then we still have the major discussion moving forward. But we leave it in the place of being more strict than them for now.
So if we approve this, if we approve what he just, this, is it done? It's over? Or is there possibilities that in the future, another future board could come back and change that?
Correct. So the township board can change its ordinance when it votes to change its ordinance.
Sure.
It just wouldn't, the water policy board would be taking the lead on the recommendation for this. But like I said, in the contract, it says the water policy board can essentially review and recommend, right? I think it's 3, might be research, review and recommend, something like that. But review and recommend an ordinance in an attempt to have conformity. So the spirit of the contract is that the ordinances and all of the rates are going to be the same through all of the municipalities. right? Now, the rates essentially have to be, otherwise you have to pay the extra money anyways. The ordinances themselves, I think you could debate.
So I'm, instead of focusing on just this right now, I know that's what we are on. But I'm pulling back and I'm looking at this as we have 2 more years here. We have no plans, by the sounds of it, that has anything to do with laying water lines in Dalton Township in any near future.
Other than that debate happening at 120 to the Hub.
Correct. Other than that, if in the future, let's say 5-10 years from now, there is, if we pass this, it's, they still have that opportunity when that, or is this like, no, this is what they have to stick to unless they come back. Can a future board come and change what we are possibly?
Yes. We can
Correct.
next month.
We can. Correct.
Because that's what I think you said.
Correct. So I
Bring it
think,
back to make the amendment, but if we make
right,
it now.
I think the reasonable direction to go,
Less
Well, we're
restrictions now,
winning
and
the
you could
battles
maybe look at it again, but you already
to
get
get to the war.
in conformity, so we don't have a lawsuit possibly coming. And it's better than what it is, what our ordinance
Okay,
is.
okay.
Research the repercussions of taking it further before we step into it.
which,
Yeah.
so I have the lawyer's letter in here. The lawyer recommends that if we're gonna veer from the Water Policy Board, to consider the repercussions of that, because
Right.
if it has a strong effect on the finances, then we should lose that battle legally. And so, correct, I think that's a reasonable direction to go, for me to be more aggressive and push on some of those adjustments with the Water Policy Board. While taking the, it's a base hit, right? So passing it is a base hit, it's a small win. A decent amount of discussion went into me getting that small win, and possibly someone else in the near future that can have those discussions at that point. But nevertheless, that all of that is correct. All right. So we have a motion by Lee, support by Tracy. Any other discussion on the board? All right, hearing none, roll call vote.
Lee,
Yes.
Tracy, yes. Carrie,
Abstain.
Nola,
Abstain.
Christie,
Yes.
Renee,
Abstain.
Jeffrey.
Yes. Motion passes.
Strangely, but yes.
Oh, that was a decently crazy vote. Yeah, knew it was going to be. So I'm confident it's not the last crazy thing of the meeting. All right, so we're on to, yeah, and Matt and Wade, I appreciate you coming out.
I appreciate the debate discussions.
Next, we have the quarterly budget adjustments. And so, which is great prep for the budget coming up here soon. There's a bunch of different things in here, right? It's decently long because, well, to a large extent, Tracy's been working out some of the GLs. And so you'll see some things are coming in and going out because they're being separated. So an example is the senior millage money, because it didn't previously have a separate GL. So there's a spot for it to be revenue, there's a spot for the entire amount to also be expense, right? So it washes out. The contract with the village, obviously for zoning, we just recently did the contract with the village. So that's a new number. So there's a spot on the revenue where it comes in, there's a spot on the expense where it goes back out. Right, some of the things that have already existed. The way I've written it up, I've tried to make the document self-explanatory with the little explanations that I put in there. That way, if anyone looks at it online, they can see it and explain it to themselves. Some of the things are very obvious. The Duff House, we obviously sold, so we don't have it. Some of the things are just the estimates that we had were off, usually by a decently small amount. We have the maintenance supervisor wages in here. That was what we talked about last month. So I have that adjustment in here. I have just being way off on a number for the seasonal maintenance, because as expected, I was attempting to get 6 people for last summer. We ended up with 2 part of the time and 4 part of the time. So that's why that number was quite a bit different. Transportation costs, obviously gas has been up a little bit, so that's been adjusted in maintenance and in fire. We have We have all the ARPA stuff. So the ARPA are big numbers, the things that we've approved and paid for, which is $133,000 interest on an account we previously didn't have because we didn't have the money. So we have that money as revenue coming in and expense going out. We have Michelinda Road, obviously that special assessment has just been put in. So we have money coming in and money going out, so numbers created for those. We have land sale proceeds. This is a big change, right? Because we have trusted agency where the purchased land was going into. And I put in the budget $425,000 as that. Tracy has created a line item under sewer operations and maintenance. That is, which we approved up to $500,000. So the $500,000, that's why you see in one section a deduction of $425,000 and the other an increase of $500,000. And so you can see there's decently big numbers, but if you add them all up, it improves the budget by $5,787. Any questions, thoughts, ideas, comments, before?
My issue, the for maintenance supervisor, I don't think that we can change that position from an hourly to a salary with a budget adjustment. I think that should be a separate motion to, if we're going to do that piece of it.
I agree.
But that's really my biggest issue,
Oh,
my biggest question.
so just
It
that
needs to be a separate.
That should be separated out.
Correct.
So you're proposing that there should be two motions here.
Yep, that should be.
Right. Right.
Okay. Anything else? Any other questions, thoughts, ideas? I mean, I wrote this up, so, but all the explanations are in there, so I'm gonna say almost the same thing, but.
I mean, I can answer to some of the.
Yes, in some of the
questions, so.
details, you'll probably be better at answering. But,
And I know that we discussed the salary wage increase for him,
yep.
and it's like walking away from that, like he's been here since September.
Mm-hmm.
And a 22% increase in wage is an awful lot of money for that short amount of time of not really proving sustainability. And I just want to make sure that we're doing what's right with township funding. And he came into this position knowing what the salary rate was.
That's correct.
We accepted him knowing he was going to take a mini break at the very beginning of coming in
Mhm.
without even having worked a year to, so I just think we really need to discuss how much.
And also
An
to
increase.
take into consideration the fact that he's been here with us 6 months in this position. And we also have other
Not even
people
6
that are
months.
not even, I know, I'm under 6 months.
Yep.
And we have other people that are salary, not elected, that have been here for longer, maybe not a lot longer, but still longer. And we haven't even discussed at all any kind of increase for them.
Mhm.
So a new person coming in and it's like, I mean, I would be anyway, if I was sitting back there and being like, really, I didn't even ask for a raise. Maybe I shouldn't be a squeaky wheel. So I do agree completely 100% that we need to have that be a separate item. Because especially with it being such a huge percentage, I think we need to kind of
Budget's
step
coming up,
back away from
everything.
that and make it a separate
Right.
issue. So I don't know how that can be done. How do you change
But,
the?
yeah, I'd like to also look at the ladies. I mean, they're here, they're here a lot.
I'm sure this will be done in April.
And I think we need to look at their wages as well. I mean, if we're getting them a raise, why not look at them as well? It's just, doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, and it's weird, right? Because we have a bunch of employees here. And so you normally wouldn't have that discussion so publicly and oddly, right? Which is part of why it's a horrible organization to run and why none of the major business people will ever do it. But nevertheless, right? If
Public
Nate,
pays them, so.
right? So if Nate wasn't the guy, there's issues in maintenance. It wasn't good for years before I've been here, and I haven't been able to straighten it out yet, right? And so that position at that wage, I don't think is working out decently well.
Right, and that's why I recommended a pay raise, because I'm
Right.
looking at the position itself.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know, I might be speaking out of terms here, but I'm gonna say, to be fair, NOLA specifically, I did not, and I told Jeff, I'm not asking for a raise.
Okay.
I was happy, I was making 50 cents more an hour pushing the button and they didn't even know my name. So I appreciate working for people that care.
Mhm.
That's my biggest gripe.
Right.
$42,000, if you want me to be honest, I don't think it's enough. And I'm not saying, and I even told Jeff, if you don't think I'm qualified for the position, I'll walk. But I'm telling you, whoever is in this position needs to make more money.
So do you
I
send a
can
lot
do-
of stuff out for repairs and that? Or do you
I
actually?
do most of it, unless it's a specialty tool, which would cost the township more money.
Okay.
Like the ditch digging for the fiber, it still costs $5,000, you saw that, right? Guess who dug the ditch?
Okay.
Guess who ran all the piping? Guess who ran all of it? I had to run the lead. They just showed up, tied to my lead and pulled it through and said, see ya. So I'm not being disrespectful in any
We
way.
don't-
I'm just
we
trying to
don't-
let you guys know, like, I made more money doing piddle. And if you don't wanna put me on salary, I get that, but salary I thought was a good compromise because in the winters and in the summers, I'm busting my butt. I'm talking 55, 60 hours a week, and I know I've only been here for 3 months and I can already tell you it's gonna be like that. Because the people that I get to work with me, the people who are willing to work part-time, seasonal, they don't give a crap about their job. They really don't. The people I had show up 30% of the time, except there's a few who showed up every time. But what I'm saying is, I show up every time, every single time. If I'm not, you can hold that against me. I just wanna put that out.
And we're, just so you know, this is not personal.
No.
We're looking at
No,
it,
it's
we're
not.
pulling back and saying,
That's
hopefully you hear our hearts. We have to be up here, we have to make these
Absolutely.
decisions. And it's not just about the maintenance, it's also about making sure we consider every hourly employee.
100%.
So we
And
wanna make
salary.
sure.
But I shouldn't be.
Steve's, I haven't seen Steve take a day off.
I'm
He's,
right.
he's here for planning, meetings, zoning meetings, he's,
Right.
But because I had a voice and an initiative, I'm
Which
getting
we're
punished.
thankful for.
So I don't.
No, that's not.
No.
I'm
But
just
you're
letting-
you're new coming in.
Yes,
So we're
absolutely.
trying to make sure that we don't just hear your voice. We
Absolutely.
wanna pull back and we wanna hear all, because yes, you're a very important position.
Yes.
So this isn't here, we're not here to upset you.
No, I just feel like if it was a problem, you should have addressed it before I got here. Me coming here has nothing to do with them making more or less. The fact that I brought it up, that's an issue.
That's not the issue. The
That's not the
issue
issue at all.
That is not the
No, we got the budget coming
We
up.
can discuss this outside of the meeting if we have any issues. I put in my 2 cents. Once again, I mean, no disrespect. I've only worked for private companies in the past, so this is so weird. To try to ask for an evaluation, and I would never ask before an annual full stint unless it was a serious deal. Cause I took a pay.
And that's what I recognize. I've worked maintenance before in a shop.
If
and
you
I
were
made-
willing to
and I
speak,
made-
listen, I appreciate it.
And I made like $18 an hour,
Right.
you know, to start.
What year was that?
That was a while back.
Right.
That was a while back.
So what made you?
and we don't
I grew up in
have,
Dalton Township and I wanted to enjoy my job. And I
I
do, I
understand.
really do enjoy my job because every day is different. I fixed a nail slot today.
So when you love your job, like that's good.
And that's what we want. That's why I want to make sure that we have someone that's gonna, number one, like the job that they're doing, and two, they feel appreciated that you're doing a
Right.
I
service.
do, I will say
And-
citizen wise specifically, people thank me all the time on the bike trail when at the elections.
Yeah.
It's a good feeling.
It's a good feeling.
It really is.
And we want to make sure that people are wanting to stay. That's the thing. We want you to stay.
Around.
So you want to keep the person satisfied that they can pay their bills and pay their wages and do what they can do. That's what I looked at when I made a recommendation, because I'm looking at what's the cost of living. And I know, like I said, I've done maintenance before I went in the shop maintenance. And I was making like $18 an hour.
Right.
And that was okay money. That was even the top pay,
Right.
okay?
Get
So,
back to the.
My
Christina,
apologies,
did you have something?
I just wanted, I know Noel, you called me today
I did,
at the township to ask me about this and I called you back, but,
and I was on the phone with another.
and I apologize, I don't mean to chime in, but I would think there would be, an employee policy that when we hire people in and if you worked in business, that was always the case where I worked. When you're hired in, you're offered a salary and then you accept your salary or your hourly wage. And then the business or the municipality determines, will give you an evaluation at 6 months if it's a merit increase or at a year, but that's presented because otherwise, forgive me, then everyone can come up to any board or our board every 2-3 months and think, I need to make this. There's gotta be a policy in place, and that has nothing to do with you, and I'm just trying to say that you have to have conformity, and then at some point you can look at everyone's salary and say, this is what the going rate is for this position, and then you have to stick with it, otherwise it's gonna be chaos and
Right.
Right, there's no
you'll
step
be
increase.
giving people
There's
raises.
no have any step increases, you're hiring here 6 months, it's
Does
this,
that make,
No,
there's no
that's
you know, then,
But you're also using examples for companies that make profit, so they also looked at an employee.
but you knew that when you hired in.
Well, when I worked for the
You knew that when
state,
you hired in.
when I worked for the state, it took 5 years for me to get max pay.
Right.
It was, the first pay raise was like 6 months, and it was every 6 months for like the first 2 years, and then
That's
it
what we're
was
proposing.
every year.
yeah,
Not
that's what we.
asking for a raise. I'm
I
asking
know,
for.
that's what I'm saying is, right, but that's what I'm looking at, trying to look out for our employees that are doing the work out.
Right,
And you
absolutely.
should.
Yes,
And-
no, I.
Should be a
Well, let's do this, because we can do a few more hours on that. We're probably, that's probably not going to get sorted out well while I'm in this position, right? I got 1 year, 10 months.
Who's counting?
It's extremely unlikely. You've got, so that position, right, Nate, when I went over this, it probably takes 18 months, right? To be fully up on that position and doing it well. So, I mean, I'm 22 months out, right? And so, I mean, it's close, and that's rough. And having the discussion like this with employees, I mean,
I can see that.
I mean,
I feel uncomfortable.
it's
And it's
like
not meant to
shooting
be.
yourself in the foot. So I don't see how it's going to go well. But what we can do is, if that's the only spot of disagreement, we could see a motion to approve the quarterly adjustments as presented while withholding the maintenance supervisor wages, and we can discuss that right after the vote on that motion.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
All right,
I
perfect.
just made that motion.
All right, so let's see. So did I make that motion?
Yes, you did.
All right, perfect. I make that motion. Carrie has the second. Any other discussion on that?
No.
All right, so this is to approve the quarterly adjustments while withholding the maintenance supervisor wages, so everything else.
Yes.
All right, roll call vote.
As soon as I write.
Yeah, no worries. The adjustment?
All right, Jeffrey,
Yes.
Carrie.
Yes.
Nola,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
Tracy, yes, Christie.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. So now, right, that one's separated out. Now we discuss that one, which is the only one we're discussing anyways. But so it's correct. You could say that we need to bring it back around to the budget itself. We could say that no wages change at all except for once a year within the budget. Now we moved away from that over the last couple of years because there were different proposals for keeping people in that type of stuff. We don't have any type of specific step wage increase or anything to that effect. All right, and so that's why I wanted to discuss it with the board before we got to this point. That's why we discussed it the last 2 months.
And I'm thinking the step would be adequate and say, here's the ceiling. We're gonna give you pay raises every at these junctures, but then you max out at this level. And then if we want,
position needs that.
and every position needs that, exactly, every position needs
I'm
that.
gonna say thank you.
And then what you do is at the end,
That's what I was trying to say.
after, let's say, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, the board then reevaluates and looks over those. Again, put that somewhere in there to reevaluate. And if there needs to be pay raises, renegotiate, reset. Because let's face it, everything's getting more expensive. And it has been for the last 40 years. Nothing's gotten cheaper.
Also too, I'd like to see, when we do discuss this next, I would like to see a breakdown. I know it's not all some of it's apples and oranges, but the municipalities within Muskegon County, what are their maintenance people making?
I
What are-
literally already did that.
Right, and I remember that number, but I remember thinking that there was very big disparages between the amounts.
Huge amounts, yeah.
So we were trying, I believe if I remember correctly, it was 42,000 was still lower end of the total.
Correct.
So that position definitely needs an increase. Where do we start? This is the time we gotta make that decision because we have the budget that we have to consider by March.
We have to have it
Yeah.
approved sometime in March.
So we need to, so I don't know if needs to be a special meeting about.
I think we
About the
should.
budget?
Well, it can be, we can
We can always adjust
include
that.
that.
So it's about the
Put that
employees
in there.
themselves.
And I wanna be clear, my need for the supervisor job hourly to salary is because the auditor's gonna come and say, what allowed you to do that? And I can't point and say, oh, well, we increased the amount here. That but it doesn't direct me to, so that's why it needs to be separate, it needs to be clear.
That makes
I'm
sense.
not opposed to salary, but
You just want the motion to include that.
yes.
All right. So where does that leave us now?
Where does that leave us now?
That's a good
Are we
question.
all in agreement that that position should be salary? We have a motion to make that position salary without increasing any rates.
At this moment.
Right, and then budget in 2 months, we can
Reevaluate.
evaluate and give everybody clear step
I like that.
I like that.
I like
patterns.
that.
Yeah,
We'll hold off for right now, reevaluate everything
You're
and go from
looking
there.
at all
But-
positions.
yes.
Yes.
All
All
the
need
Not
to go
elected.
into the budget.
Yes.
Not elected.
She's
Hourly.
looking at elected.
Elected,
employees.
elected as
Elected
well. I mean, we might as well.
Started.
Look what you started.
You I just get to wait 6 months.
Oh,
No.
6 months, 2 more.
2 months.
Don't throw eggs at them, they're too
Which
expensive.
actually have you here, it actually has you here for 6 months, so that's like perfect.
I suppose.
That's perfect, cause that would be appropriate.
I will say this is an open invitation to all of the trustees. I didn't mean to point at you, sorry.
It's you and you.
4 hours a day, you are more than welcome to job shadow me, but like I said, you're not job shadowing, you're gonna be working with me.
Grab a shovel.
Yeah, sure.
Exactly.
Okay,
We
so,
grabbed the garbage.
Yeah.
How do you write that?
Yeah, so what do we?
I like what you
do we have?
said.
I know.
Like that.
okay, so,
Jeez,
I'll make a motion to change the supervisor, the maintenance supervisor position from hourly to salary at a rate of 36,400.
I'll second that.
All right.
And that's what you're currently at.
Right, that's the current.
That's what we're currently at.
So we have a motion by Tracy, second by Renee,
Currently at. Yeah, we're
right, to change it to salary
Right.
Change it to salary.
where it is. It's $21 decrease, but otherwise where it is, right? All right, any other discussion among the board?
Yeah, she left off.
I'll take it as cash.
When Andrew Carnegie sold his businesses to form US Steel, he took it in gold bonds.
Really?
Free.
So,
I told you, it's gonna be a long meeting. So-
You're the one that made the board packet.
I've lost half of our audience.
I can make all,
say aye.
I can make all these decisions on my own. I don't need the board to make decisions.
No,
But-
Jeffrey, no. Are you gonna add to that motion on waiting and evaluating everybody?
We'll do that at budget time anyway.
Okay.
We'll make it.
I'd like to revamp the whole employee.
Amen.
It's rough.
Yes.
Good.
All right, anything else among the board?
Roll call.
Roll call vote.
Tracy, yes. Renee?
Yes, ma'am.
Lee?
Yes.
Harry?
Yes.
Nola?
Yes.
Christie?
Yes.
Jeffrey?
Yes.
Get you there.
my heart rate is not down like 20 beats per. That's
Alright, so the next two things are the board review, we can turn those over, those aren't on the agenda. Next, we have the land sale proposal for Russell Road. So what we have on here is we have the Realtor price analysis. So the computer generated a recommended price of $11,800. The Realtor themselves had suggested $14,000. The true cash value according to property taxes is $9,200.
That's what I was.
Does the amount in between, does that take into account the rates that of properties and homes especially that have gone up so much in the last couple of years? Cause I'm like, that's a 5,000,
Yeah,
quite a bit.
all these are the comparables, that's what all these are.
But we have the one that's like way up here that throws it all off. That's why I'm like, trying to make sure we're doing apples and oranges, apples and apples and oranges.
Well, that's why I like having both. So this is the Realtor, the real estate salesperson, this is what their computer generates.
Gotcha.
The 14,000 is just what her personal opinion was. The
Okay.
9,200 is what the tax assessor actually assesses them at.
So if we make a motion and we put a minimum bid of whatever, then we could, if it's low enough, it could be a bidding war, where if we set the high amount too high. somebody could-
Right, it's a minimum. Yep.
So I make a motion to put the parcel on West Road for bid for a minimum of $11,000.
11,000.
Support.
Motion by Carrie for 11,000, support by Nola. Any discussion among the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Carrie,
Yes.
Nola,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Tracy, yes, Renee?
Yes, ma'am.
She went to the restroom real quick.
Jeffrey?
Yes. Alright. Passes. Next, we have the land bid opening for East Daniels. This we'd set at a minimum of $10,000. And we have one.
They left?
Like, hey, you lost it.
Oh.
$10,000. That is the bid. That was the minimum.
Make a motion to accept the bid for parcel. No.
Support.
All right, motion by Carrie, support by Nola to accept the bid for $10,000 for East Daniels. Any discussion among the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Carrie,
Yes.
Nola,
Yes.
Christie,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Tracy, yes, Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
Jeffrey?
Yes. Motion passes.
Off that debt.
Next, we have ordinance, we've already generated the $500,000 for
Woo-hoo, bring it.
ordinance 2023-01, which is for ORVs. And so this has been brought up about why are we registering them, liability for the township. There's been a discussion since we discussed it the first time. Right, it went through, I mean, we're a government board, so it went through its clunky process. It came out the way that it did. And I thought, since it doesn't really serve as purpose for us registering them, that I might bring it up again at some point in the future. Someone had emailed me asking about liability. They contacted me a couple of times, so I said, I'll check with township council, with the lawyer, and see. Our registration is a waiver of liability, so we're decently covered there. But the lawyer said if you're not actually inspecting them, which if you're inspecting them, you're certainly on the hook for liability. But if you're registering them and not inspecting them, the case can still be made for the liability. And considering government immunity, he said he thinks it makes sense to just eliminate chapter 30.08G. And so that's how I drew this up.
I make a motion to approve ordinance 2023-01 to amend the ORV ordinance.
All right, motion by Renee, support by Lee. Any other discussion among the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
Lee,
Yes.
Nola,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Tracy, yes, Christie,
Yes.
Jeffrey?
Yes. Motion passes. Next, we have Andrea's leave. And so she has a surgery coming up. She included a letter in here. Up to 30 days, it doesn't have to come to the board, but if it does go over the board in the policy handbook, it says that the board of trustees have to vote on it. And so since it could possibly be 4 to 6 weeks, obviously we would hope for less. But I drew it up, and you're supposed to have a specific comeback time frame, right? And I'm guessing we could determine when her last day is going to be, but sometimes that can change before surgery if there's prep in it. Other people have more experience than me, but nevertheless, sometimes that fluctuates. So the way I wrote this out is 42 days from the last day she works. That adds that little bit of flexibility when she's working last, gives up to the full 6 weeks. But
Is that business days or is that days?
days.
Just making sure.
Yeah, I just did 7 times 6.
I make a motion to approve the time off for Andrea Dennis for up to 42 days on her last day she worked.
Before surgery.
Before surgery.
All right.
Support.
Motion by Carrie, support by Nola. Any other discussion among the board? Would you like to say anything, Andrew?
After Carrie had made his motion, I said, I didn't hear paid.
Yeah, well, and so any unpaid time off, the vacation days, personal days, obviously that gets used in there, and then after that it becomes unpaid.
It's like me.
All right. Motion support. Anything else from the board?
One thing I just want to hit real quick, because FMLA, I mean, I believe that just means that you get your job back when you come back.
It doesn't,
That's
we don't have FMLA, because we don't have those 50 people.
Wait, what?
So that's why you're referencing
I'm
that.
asking for the time off for a little bit of time.
Oh, okay, because FMLA is not, you don't have FMLA? You can't get it, it's a
We don't
fact.
have, we have FMLA, we don't have enough.
FMLA only counts for a certain amount of employees in an organization.
Right.
Okay, that's,
Thank you for the clarification, because I'm just wondering.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good. Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Roll call vote.
Carrie.
Yes.
Nola.
Yes.
Tracy, yes. Christie.
Yes.
Renee.
Yes, ma'am.
Lee.
Yes.
Jeff.
Yes. Motion passes. Next, we have the camping ordinance to the planning commission. And so obviously this has been discussed for years around the township. What this motion would do would send it to the planning commission so that they can review it, debate it, draw something up and send it back to us, right? It takes a few months at a minimum. And that's what this would be starting.
I make a motion for the planning commission to review a camping ordinance.
Support. Motion by Renee, support by Carrie. Any discussion on the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Renee.
Yes, ma'am.
Carrie.
yes.
Lee.
Yeah.
Christie.
Yes.
Nola.
Yes.
Jeffrey.
Yes.
Tracy, yes.
Motion passes. Next is similar, but it's for an enforcement ordinance. And this would be working from the resolutions that we have in place. And there'd be 2 different processes here because we have it in the code of ordinances that we can have enforcements on, and we have it through zoning itself. The zoning portion goes through the planning commission through that whole process. The other part, the code of ordinances, or often called the general ordinances, just goes through us. So this part would be about sending the zoning portion to the planning commission to review.
Yeah, I make a motion for the planning commission review and enforcement ordinance.
Support.
Motion by Carrie, support by Nola. Any discussion among the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Carrie.
Yes.
Nola.
Yes.
Tracy, yes. Renee.
Yes, ma'am.
Christie.
Yes.
Jeffrey.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, we have resolution 2023-02, which is the first resolution for the Central Road paving. And obviously the board packet gets posted publicly, but I did specifically send it to the guy that went around and drew up the petitions too, or got the other people to sign. So he specifically knows moving forward. Otherwise, obviously these things take months in between when numbers are being drawn up and stuff. We've been through the process before. And at this juncture, what I would like to do time frame wise, as long as it goes through, and we haven't had anyone here protesting. I would like to protest now if they were going to protest, so that we would stop it early. But if they're not going to protest, which doesn't appear that they're going to, then I would like to do this one now, the 2 and 3, which is the hearing and the next petition next month. That way the final hearing can be in March. That way the road commission can tackle it this year. That's right now, that's my plan.
I make a motion to approve resolution 2023-02 for the first, for the Central Road project.
I'll second
Central-
that.
Central-
Second, whatever. Yes, thank you, sir.
All right, motion by Carrie, second by Renee. Any discussion among the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Carrie.
Yes.
Renee.
Yes, ma'am.
Nola.
Yes.
Jeffrey.
Yes.
Tracy, yes. Lee.
Yes.
Christie.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, we have the real estate escalation clause policy. This was brought up and that it should be clarified. Jesse had brought it up and it's a good point because I don't know what's going to be in the envelopes when I open them.
Right.
And I added part 5 in here, which I made red, and it's just short little escalation clause. Says that we don't want escalation clauses, but if there is one that, and we open it and we see it in the highest number, Gary was talking about, in the highest number is treated as the bid. So that was the only adjustment that was made there.
I make a motion to approve the Dalton Township land sale policy as amended.
Support.
Motion by Carrie, support by Nolan. Any discussion among the board? Hearing none, we'll call a vote.
Carrie,
Yes.
Nola,
Yes.
Christie,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Tracy, yes, Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
Jeffrey.
Yes. Motion passes. Next, we have the payroll procedure policy, and this references back to the handbook, which has various issues in it. In 3.13, it has a contradiction in the first sentence where it says that things are going to be paid bi-weekly, which we're assuming is not twice a week, but every other week. And it also says that the payments are going to happen on the 15th and 30th of each month, which is bi-monthly. So one of those was not correct. If we switch to just every other week, the one part just needs to be eliminated. So that's where it's been adjusted.
You got February. You know, get it?
No, it means I have one day to process.
Well, yeah, it's true.
I make a motion to approve the recording of hours and payroll procedures as amended.
Support.
Motion by Carrie, support by Nola. Any discussion among the board? Roll call vote.
Carrie,
Yes.
Yes.
Tracy, yes, Lee,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
Christie.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, we have our discussion items. First is enforcement ordinance, 4 code of ordinances. Like I talked about before, it would be separate. And so I have included it in here. I want to know if anyone thought about making any adjustments before I'll probably bring it to us next month for approval, because it can be a pretty quick turnaround. The only obvious adjustment that I see is provision number 10, where it says non-compliance with this resolution will not be a legal defense in a court of law. I put that in there because we were working out any kinks that may be in the resolution before we turn it into an ordinance, so that part can now be removed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Number 10. Any other thoughts, comments, questions, ideas? Alright. Annual meeting dates. So in February, we'll see 5 resolutions to do with this. 4 for the salary resolutions for elected officials, and 1 for setting the date of the annual electors. The meeting of the annual electors is specifically designed to limit the ability of the elected officials to vote themselves a raise, which the first year was weird because we're voting on the entire budget. That's not what it's designed for anymore. Originally, when it came out in the 1800s, it was. And so I think it's a good thing to have in place, and we can have the budget meeting at the same time. It just has to be posted in time. That's the weird thing we ran into last year. If we want to have separate working sessions on just the budget, we can certainly do that. Since I already have discussion items at the ends of the meetings, I can include the full budget in February, and we can discuss it through that as well. If we do the meeting on a Saturday for the annual meeting and that final budget approval, if we do it later in March, like on the 25th, then we could discuss it in the February and March meeting. So, but I'm flexible which way people want to go on this.
25th of March would be out for me.
Me too. I'll be out of town. Not that it matters, but he works every Saturday.
Oh, it does matter.
Yeah, we're till 6:30.
Absolutely it matters.
And we don't want to come in at 7 p.m. on
No,
a Saturday night.
no.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a Saturday, it can be an evening. I think Saturdays are
Usually more easy.
for availability, you
It
know.
can be, but it's also been the tradition in the township, I'm not sure for how long, but to have it on a Saturday as well.
To be able to make it more easier for, I'm assuming, for residents that are Monday through Friday workers.
Right.
So,
So more people can attend, potentially, hopefully. That's the idea. All right, what are we thinking then?
The next option is the 18th if it's a Saturday.
It is.
If we're,
18th
yeah,
of,
if we're keeping a Saturday on that.
the 18th of February.
March.
March.
It's the day after St. Patrick's Day. I don't know, that's gonna be rough.
That was our.
A lot of headaches.
Not on my end.
Me either.
18th.
This is just for the salaries.
This is for
The
the
budget
annual
hearing.
meeting of the electors and the budget meeting. There's two separate meetings technically, but they're as
What time are
one.
you thinking?
Did you have something now?
What?
No.
If we can do it, I know you don't wanna hear this, but if we can do it later in the day, I believe you can do a half day and come in stuff.
Yeah.
If you do it early in the day, then it's not worth it for you. It's gonna get too many points. But if you can get to where you starts at 6, it works till 6, so if we can do something like 2:00.
All right, so I think it's been being done before. What was the time before?
I think it was 4:00, wasn't
It
it?
was 1.
Oh, was it 1:00?
It was relatively early in the day, so 1.
What can you make, Carrie?
I can work something out. I got time on, I can use time off.
It's 2:00?
2 p.m. would be fine.
So you're gonna do both meetings in the one session, or the one at the same day?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's reasonable to do that.
Okay.
Not gonna hold
We don't wanna take 2 Saturdays.
No. So,
All right, so when are we thinking?
March 18th at 2:00?
March 18th at 2 p.m.
All right, March 18th at 2 p.m. I can draw that up. We'll see that resolution next month.
Okay.
All right. We are moving on to our second public and board comments. Is there anyone from the public who wants to comment on anything?
Be okay. So just to explain a little bit more why I wrote the letter, and Tracy has said many times in this meeting, our handbook needs work. We as salary or hourly employees have 0 job security here. So unless we come to you and ask for time off, it's an at-will work state. Michigan is an at-will work state.
Right.
We are at your mercy. Please look into that when you're going into your next fiscal year and looking at the policy book, that you have 4 of us here. And if you can't, or 5, sorry, chief, and hopefully more firefighters, can't give us at least a little job security, I think you'd see a lot less turnover if we had that job security. That's just my
Excellent point.
Take good.
soapbox moment.
Especially nowadays,
That's important.
get people to show up faithfully.
Yes.
Yes.
Said.
All right, any other public comment on anything? No? Any board comments?
When does the payroll thing start? Say anything about when it starts, I do payroll, so I need to know.
It would be effective immediately
How
and,
is the end of the pay period?
well, right, so the pay date stays the same for this one. It just so happens that it would stay the same. So
So the next
basically,
one's gonna be the new one.
yes, yep, I've got a calendar, we'll go through it.
Okay. That's all.
Good. All right, anything else?
Motion to dismiss.
All right, motion to adjourn by Noah, second by Carrie.
Third.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And adjourn.